Under the enigmatic Montana sky, the small town of Hardin holds a story shrouded by mystery. It's on a warm August evening in 2019. As the day's light fades away, a spirited 18-year-old was among friends, her laughter mingling with the summer air. Kaysera Stops Pretty Places. As darkness settled, Kaysera stepped into a night that would swallow her entire presence. It was only days before Kaysera disappears. She filmed and uploaded a video of local law enforcement officers beating up her 15-year-old brother. This is no case of a simple missing teen. It's a narrative wrapped deep in shadows. Each detail of this case leads to only more questions. How the case was handled by law enforcement, uncooperative witnesses, and potential corruption all seem to kind of hover over this case. So how does an 18-year-old just disappear in the middle of the night from a party full of people? That's the mystery we're going to try and unravel in this episode. So if you want to hear more, just listen on or click the link in the bio. Thank you again for joining us on this episode. I'm going to try and edit out as much background noise as I can. I am recording outdoors in the beautiful country of Costa Rica. So in the vast kind of sweeping landscapes of Bighorn County in Montana, where the Crow and Northern Cheyenne tribes have intertwined their histories with the land, this name carries more than just Kaysera's identity. Itself is a narrative, a tapestry of cultural heritage. This was profoundly true for Kaysera, an 18-year-old whose name echoed the depth of her indigenous roots and the community's rich traditions. So Kaysera's name is unique. It's deeply meaningful, and it's also imbued with stories of her people. In many indigenous cultures, names are not just labels, but are seen as symbols that capture the aspects of an individual's personality, their family history, and even the circumstances of their birth. Kaysera, among her friends, was known to be a social person, kind of a beacon of hope and light in her community. She's known for speaking out against wrongdoings. She had a strong sense of justice, and this is embodied also with her people of the Crow and Northern Cheyenne communities. Her aspirations and dreams were a lot bigger than just the Montana sky. She was a student with great aspirations, and Kaysera had looked forward to a trip with her family to North Dakota to visit more relatives, a journey, sadly, she would never make. Kaysera lived with her grandmother, Yolanda Fraser. Kaysera was this kind of cheerful and yet responsible individual who liked to put the needs of her friends and loved ones kind of before herself. In the summer of 2019, she filmed and uploaded a video of local law enforcement officers beating up her 15-year-old brother, who happened to use a wheelchair. So this happened at the Crow Fair. Kaysera and this active filming, kind of what happened to her brother, led to a little bit of passionate activism surrounding the police use of force in this case. But as the summer of 2019 unfolded, Kaysera does take a mysterious turn. She suddenly disappears in late August after attending a party. We're going to get into the circumstances surrounding her disappearance and what might have happened to her. I just want to thank you again for joining us, and I would love if you could click follow if you're listening on wherever you're listening. Actually, if you could just click follow, it helps the channel and it'll keep you up to date with new episodes. And if you don't mind giving I really appreciate that. And yeah, we'll move on. So to understand a little bit more about Kaysera's life, about the relationship she had with her brother and her family, it's important to kind of describe the town that she lived in. So it's a small town. The population is about 3,500 people, and it's a gateway to the Crow Reservation, and it's only kind of a stone's throw from the Little Bighorn battlefield. The town is kind of quiet. There's a lot of modest homes and local businesses. It does have a bit of a rich history because of the indigenous history of the area. And it's a place where there was this incident with her brother, a 15-year-old boy who is wheelchair bound. And this story could be pivotal to what happens to Kaysera. And I'm going to just lay out what I was able to find on the internet about this, and you'll have to start to analyze this yourself as we go on and I guess make up your own mind. So the Horn County Sheriff's Department was the agency involved in this dispute, and the details of how the altercation begins remain unclear. But according to people present, so there's some kind of altercation between the officers and the brother, And according to the people that see this, the interactions begin to intensify, and it became that the police were physically assaulting the person, or the person in the wheelchair, her brother, and they were not able to defend themselves given the physical limitations. So it just seemed to everybody surrounding the scene, there was completely disproportionate use of force from the officers that just straight up seemed like a beating. That's how it's described by the people that saw it. And yeah, I wasn't there, and I'm not going to play armchair quarterback, but I just imagine it's definitely a harder thing to justify when you're beating someone up in a wheelchair. Okay, so she has this footage she records during the altercation, and it doesn't look so good for the officers that are involved. And of course, she's speaking out against this, and the video shows that her brother's in distress, that the officers have this grip on him, kind of like this disturbing montage of exactly what happened. Like anything, a video doesn't mean one thing or the other without context, but seems like quite a few witnesses were there to back what Kaysera's take on this whole thing is. So after this, undeterred by the potential repercussions, uploads a video onto social media. This is an act of defiance, and it was deliberate. It was a deliberate attempt to try and bring light to the kind of injustices that go unnoticed in their community, and even in a broader context in the Indigenous community from law enforcement. So as you would expect, the video quickly circulates, and it doesn't look so good for the community police force. So it would seem at this time she was definitely no friend of the local sheriff. So this, I just want to point out again, this young person at 8, that's a sense of fearlessness or bravery for sure to do that and not be deterred by, well, if the police are going to beat the crap out of your brother, I don't know. I wouldn't think that you're beyond their reach at any point living in that town. So Kaysera, outside this incident, she also had a pretty good relationship with her grandmother Yolanda and her aunt Priscilla Brown Boltail. So they have both played a significant role in her upbringing, and they would share stories, attend events together, and just kind of do what they do. So the town itself, being slow-paced, is not without its challenges. I grew up in a town like this, and yes, it comes with what else do you do besides you party, drink, drug, whatever goes on, and it becomes the source of entertainment. They're not the healthiest places to shape young minds, for sure. There's not the social kind of supports, or not just supports, but like social structures, even like having access to sports or things for kids to do, like skate parks. Yeah, it doesn't exist, and you turn to your own forms of entertainment. You do have overlapping cultures in the community. You have, I would just say, this kind of small town vibe. That would sum it up. If you've ever been to these parts of the world, everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows everybody's business. Like many people, like I mentioned, what do? You go to parties at that age, and that's where Kaysera finds herself on August 24th, 2019. It's a common sight for the teenagers of Hardin, and these gatherings weren't always just innocent escapades. They were intersections where people got to experiment with being an adult a little bit. Sometimes Kaysera's family was not a fan of the circles that she ran with. Small town people know people, and they just didn't like some of the kind of, I would say, people on the fringes of her social circle. But despite having the strong grounding with her family and cultural values, it wasn't enough to always keep Kaysera out of trouble. Their grandmother Yolanda and their aunt Priscilla at times did observe subtle shifts in their behavior, but was nothing like a scale that would lead them to truly be worried about this kid's future. It just things that give them pause. So let's move forward into, now that you have a little bit of idea where Kaysera comes from, maybe we can talk about where she went. So on August 24th, like I mentioned, in Montana, she's at this social gathering or party in the town of Hardin. So there was a diverse mix of familiar faces at the party. There were some new acquaintances and some people is we've come to find out that we're familiar. So the house that hosted the party was known for its gathering. And so there was this energy, kind of a vibrant youth and music, probably a little bit of reefer getting passed around and a few drinks. And music is bouncing through the rooms. And among Kaysera's friends that went there with her is her close companion, Isabel Anderson and Nakia Spotted Horse. So the building itself is kind of a single story family type home. And it was a backdrop for a lot of parties. And inside, like I said, everything's electric. She's talking to her friends, and during the party, the dust kind of settles into the night. The energy starts to shift at the house on Mitchell Avenue, and it shifts with the arrival of a guest called Natosi Summers, who is Isabel Anderson's Valega's boyfriend. When the atmosphere changed, he had a little bit of a reputation as kind of volatile, unpredictable. And so there was this kind of tension in the house when he's there. So the tension starts to escalate when Tosi becomes involved in a heated exchange with a 17-year-old girl. The name is known to the locals, but it's not reported. I think probably because they're a youth. So this dispute starts over kind of a trivial matter, and it spirals into kind of accusations being shouted about, like, whatever rumors are going around, like just a verbal altercation. And this altercation catches the attention of a 23-year-old man known to some of the party goers and not to be in the regular circle. He intervenes and kind of takes the young girl's side. But this verbal altercation now goes from verbal to starting to get into shoving, pushing. The party scene now kind of breaks into chaos. Small groups are formed around like the people fighting. Some people are trying to diffuse the situation, while others are fueled by booze and free-flowing testosterone, and we all know how that can get. So things are getting a little cray-cray. And in comes Kaysera, known amongst her friends and the community as being very peaceful and compassionate when it came to like the relationships between people. She attempts to mediate the fight between Natosi and the other individuals. Kaysera's approach didn't really help, and the escalation starts growing worse and worse. The voices get louder, and in the midst of this growing kind of fight, Kaysera is last seen stepping out into the yard, perhaps for an attempt at getting a little bit of air or finding some respite from the confrontation. Could have been to seek help, but that moment when she stepped outside would be the last time that anybody set eyes on Kaysera. What transpired after she stepped into the yard remains shrouded in mystery. The events that unfolded during the following hours will later become subject to intense scrutiny and speculation as the community and the law enforcement tried to piece together a truly mysterious sequence of events that leads to the end of this young woman's life. The number of people that were actually at this party that night too, it's not completely clear, and the police have withheld some information, so it's not like everything's out there. And I don't imagine, being that it's only in 2019, we'll see a ton of things would be released. Would expect that's in these types of crimes. So as dawn breaks on the next morning, so August 25, 2019, Kaysera's family realizes she has not returned home from the party, and immediately they start calling around friends, family, and to law enforcement. So during the first couple of hours, I think it's just chaos. I don't think people are probably assuming the worst right away. You know, maybe she went home with a friend. I think I've done this kind of stuff in high school. It could be anywhere. And the town of Hardin starts to slowly get involved. Neighbors and friends are rallying, and a couple people start to form search parties and comb through the areas around Mitchell Avenue. And slowly the hours ticked away into days. And during this time, the police didn't really get super involved. It's not that they weren't aware, but is often seen with cases of missing teenagers, young people, right away, like, well, this attitude of let's wait and see. And they'll probably be home. They're probably at a friend's, or And then on top of that, there is an issue we'll talk about a little bit more in the podcast about how often with missing Indigenous women, the year is even more. More. There's way less of a response typically from law enforcement statistically and historically. So it's an issue. However, eventually the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office do start to get more and more involved as time goes on, and they're starting to realize, okay, this kid might not be coming home. The local police do help ramp up the search efforts, and they start talking to people in the community, collecting statements, and they begin to piece together a timeline of her last known whereabouts. So, as in law enforcement does get involved, it does bring a more structured approach to the kind of the search for Kaysera and her family. The search begins to widen from just the party area and her friends' houses, and they're looking through ravines and creeks. Social media platforms are abuzz with like posts about Kaysera. People, like, there's nobody in town that doesn't know that this is going on, and everybody in the town is just so concerned for her well-being that I couldn't imagine the tension the entire town was going through. So there was vigils that were organized, and residents gathered solidarity. Teams in the search scour kind of the outskirts of the town and start retracing routes that Kaysera might have taken. The Bighorn County Air starts to coordinate kind of more like fine-tooth comb shirt. They're like looking in the leaf litter, kind of in the forest. The Little Bighorn River is searched. So in the morning of August 29, 2019, the search comes to a tragic end in a backyard along Mitchell Avenue, just a short distance from where she was last seen. Kaysera's body was found. The grim discovery shattered the last vestiges of hope, leaving the community reeling in shock and grief. The unanswered questions surrounding her disappearance turned even darker and deeper. How did Kaysera end up there? How wasn't she found? What happened to her during those days? And who were the last people that she talked to? So the discovery shifted the focus completely. As the unsettling mystery of Kaysera starts to unfold, investigators start taking like a homicide investigation approach with the help of the FBI. And they also invoke the help of some cultural leaders and advocates from the Crow and Northern Cheyenne tribes, just to help explain it. In a lot of Indigenous cultures, a child of the community is everyone's child. Like there's this beyond the family, the immediate nuclear family. There's this hole ripped in the cultural or community family as well. So everyone kind of banding together to also help with the investigation and kind of help people deal with all the negative feelings of losing somebody. The sheriff, Lawrence Big Hair, did start to act with this kind of sense of urgency. And in the first week of September, investigators revealed some early yet pivotal findings. They confirmed that Kaysera was last seen near Mitchell Avenue, that this is based on eyewitness accounts, and that there is a kind of narrowed focus on the area where her body was found and the area where the party was. So forensic teams are analyzing items from the party venue, the area in between, their statements being collected. And one of the things is some of the forensic information that's collected during this has never really been disclosed to the public, but it is known that they do have some stuff, and it makes sense. I don't want to disclose everything. They're holding the cards close to the chest with that. But as we're going to get into, there might be more nefarious reasons for that. So in the days after the investigation, the Montana Department of Justice Criminal Investigation Division is brought in, and they kind of deal with these complex cases. And the involvement of the DCI did signify that, hey, the police were taking it seriously, but overall that they saw this is not some kind of just open and close accidental death or something. And the autopsy and forensic analysis was a top priority for the state medical examiner's office and for the police. So initial autopsy results did not happen to clarify the circumstances surrounding her death, leading to even more complexity and questions in the investigation. As part of the inquiry, investigators conducted extensive interviews with individuals who had been to the party that night. Isabella Anderson, Villegas, Nakia Spotted Horse, and Tosi Summers were among those. And the sheriff's office tried to piece together this timeline of Kaysera's last known movements, and the best they could do was up to the moment of that altercation when she stepped away. And following the discovery of the body on 2019, so for Sheriff Big Hair, this was like a very big focus, and just getting the information from all the people at the party and to construct that timeline like down to the second of where Kaysera was. Some party goers recall seeing Kaysera in various parts of the house and yard throughout the evening, often accompanying friends. They talk about the altercation with Tosi Summers, and several witnesses described seeing Kaysera trying to mediate that situation. But the furthest they get into that night, again, is Kaysera stepping out into the yard. So for 5 days, her whereabouts, walking out that door, are completely unknown. I can't imagine how stressful that's got to be for the family, like the amount of questions rolling through their heads. So there wasn't a lot of public updates coming in from the police during this investigation, and that kind of a sore point with some of the people in the community. Eventually, the sheriff's office disclosed that they are treating Kaysera's death as suspicious given the circumstances of her disappearance and the state in which her body was found. However, they wouldn't say more than that, and the specifics regarding the potential suspects or motives have not been released. So there's no definitive conclusions that can be drawn from what's publicly known in this case. So in response to the public outcry, the sheriff's office did start to provide some general updates, but again, the specifics are unknown. Kaysera's case started to become another kind of sadly pivotal moment in the murdered and missing Indigenous women crisis that's been plaguing an entire culture for quite some time. And because of this, this is part of the reason why the FBI gets involved, because of the case complexities, the federal jurisdiction, and their expertise in dealing with cases involving Indigenous persons. So the FBI, and then you also have Canadian police forces as well, that do have this like kind of murdered and missing Indigenous women working group to cooperate, because there's a major issue with the disproportionate amount of violence that's suffered to Indigenous women and also with that, you have a lack of response typically, historically, from law enforcement. So this makes them essentially more vulnerable. Perpetrators know that. And then unfortunately also the fact that in some cases there's not this police response, you don't get the evidence, and women either are sex trafficked, they're killed and murdered, they're kidnapped, beaten, all these horrible things, and the perpetrator trying to get away with it. So months pass, and the investigation is not providing any answers to the public, to the family, at least from what I could see. And this lack of leads leads to a lot of rumors and speculations within the community, which also adds a layer to complexity. You have false memories being created or false witnesses coming forward, and God knows what could have happened. But the pressure was on the police from the family. Know that. And because of that, several issues start getting raised, because people are fucking freaking out because their daughter, niece, cousin, whatever friend has literally just been likely murdered, from the police say, and they want answers. Because especially in a small town like that, the perpetrator is likely among it, and that's kind of fucking weird in itself. So the first issue is the delayed response, and this is one of the most significant criticisms of the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office, is that there was a perceived delay in them essentially taking the case seriously. Basically, that delay could have caused the loss of evidence and all of the things that go along with that. And Sheriff Lawrence Big Hair and his team did face a lot of accusations from the family of poor communication, a lack of transparency and regular updates, and overall just creating an issue of distrust in an environment where Indigenous people in that community were already not trusting the police. The evidence itself was subjected to the outdoors, and there were a lot of people through the different crime scenes, and you have a party and nobody's got a real clear recollection. So there's not really any reliable timeline and no publicly made, at least what we know of forensic evidence. I think there probably is some, and it's going to be kept that way that we won't know about it until they make an arrest. And some of the witnesses also in this case were hesitant to come forward, again, because of the mistrust in law enforcement, or maybe they had their own criminal dealings, or maybe they were involved. So this complicates the task of gathering consistent and reliable accounts for the night in question. I'm just going to point out, yes, so like when witnesses are going to be able to provide evidence for the police, they need to know that it's reliable. There's different tests that are applied to see how reliable somebody can be, but the easiest way to do that is to get someone to corroborate what the other person is saying independently. Ideally, in a party like that, you want to see several witnesses kind of saying the same thing, and they're not getting that. Whether it's not the same thing, it's unfortunate. The FBI and the sheriff's office push on into this investigation, and it just goes to make this even more perplexing than I can imagine, because now you've got the FBI, state investigators, the town of 3,500 people, you have the family, the community advocate. Oh, look, like this is a small town. And somehow this person, I don't understand how you can be at a party and just completely disappear, only to be found not too far away, and you've been there for 5 days. Something else is up. And I'll tell you, when we get into that, I think you might think the same thing. I was going to remind you that all the theories and the speculation in this case, when you don't have the evidence. And it's not that the evidence doesn't exist, you just can have. Okay. One thing to note here is even with the FBI's assistance and everything, there's not a publicly disclosed definitive answer regarding her actual death. Whether it could have been drugs, poison, blunt force injury, all those things. That's not disclosed. We don't know that. It's kind of like left this inconclusive answer, but they're treating it as a homicide and that her death is suspicious that way. Okay, so before we get into some of the theories, I just want to recap the timeline and the facts that we kind of know about that case so it doesn't get lost. So she's at the party on August 24th. Her body is discovered on Mitchell Avenue on August 29th, 5 days in between. At the party, there's a lot of people that she knew, and there's a lot of people that weren't known. There's no definitive answers on exactly who was there, other than there was an altercation at the party. Kaysera intervened, and was last seen walking outside, and till her body's found 5 days later. You have the Bighorns County Sheriff's Office responsible for investigating this, and publicly there's no conclusive evidence surrounding the causes of death, times of deaths, the mechanism of death, and things like that. The first theory that kind of touched on earlier, and it's that being Indigenous, that she was targeted. So there is a party going on behind me, so I don't know if you can hear. Hopefully not. Okay, let's get into. So the first thing, their theory that I posited in this case is that Kaysera's activism towards the police beating the crap out of her wheelchair brother. So she, as I mentioned, she courageously films this, puts it on social media, calls him out for this BS, and it was not well received by the public. Not on her behalf, but on behalf of the police. They were angry. So a lot of speculation that is there a motive for law enforcement in this case? There's this witness that comes forward, and his name is Jason Cummings. He's the person who discovered Kaysera's body. He reports that he saw police officers removing Kaysera's cell phone from the crime scene, an action that contradicted the kind of standard procedures for evidence preservation. And this break out of the chain of custody of evidence, it is possible that somebody could alter the data that's on the phone if they wanted to, and nobody could really say otherwise. And then you have the coroner, this Terry Bullis fella. He expedites the cremation of Kaysera's body. It hampers further efforts to investigate the causes of death and get more forensic evidence. And this is done without the consent of the family, and it actually went against the family's kind of beliefs and practices, and they were opposed to this. From their perspective and some people's perspective, they think that there's this collusion that exists, but it could just be coincidence, but it doesn't look good. Especially considering that days before that this happened, they literally had evidence of the police committing a crime against her brother, and this cell phone may have been the piece that held that original evidence. The only thing you have to remember is that, the video was already out there, but there could have been more. So, point is, now we don't know. So, people were upset with one of the captains, I think it's Mike Fuss, because they didn't initiate their search right away, and that ties into the broader perspective of missing and murdered Indigenous women. So they didn't respond right away, which could have also caused evidence to lose its validity. So then, kind of where that one wraps up. It looks bad to have police removing evidence. It looks bad, especially when the person had filmed them doing something illegal days before and speaking out against the police. But looking bad isn't proof. The other thing that seems to be pressing is that the last known account of her is leaving this party, and there was a conflict that Kaysera tried to break up. The fact that her body is found so close to this party, it does seem to indicate that maybe that somebody at the party is involved in this. And it becomes super weird when you have this many people not able to provide a clear account of events, people that aren't willing to cooperate, though they might have their reasons. You also have people that are known to have tempers and are fighting at this party. So there's all the elements that kind of doesn't make it that far-fetched to believe that the perpetrator was somebody from this party. And it could be someone from out of town. It could be somebody that she knows. But they could have been just this conflict gone wrong, and people, maybe there was an accidental death situation or something to that extent. But maybe something where there was witnesses and there is a conspiring to misdirect the investigation, all those things. And it's quite possible. It's possible that her death resulted from a random predator. So random predator theory, whether they knew they were targeting because they were Indigenous, because maybe they were intoxicated after this party. Maybe it wasn't necessarily somebody at that party, but someone happening to go by. And again, I think I mentioned it before, but Indigenous women seem to be targeted more, and predators have caught on to the fact that the lack of police response gives them a little bit of cover to commit more crimes. She would definitely be considered a vulnerable person in this situation, and it is possible that this was a kind of more random predator than something gone, like in a fight at the party gone wrong, or an argument or dispute, or a police cover-up. It very well could just be some kind of bad man. Her woman truly perplexes my mind. I struggled with this one, and even trying to research more information on it. A lot of stuff hasn't been made public yet. The only thing I can say that it seems to me is that I can't see how somebody at that party is somebody at that party is holding the keys to this case, whether they're involved with law enforcement or it's just a witness. The answer is out there. I'd love to know what you think about you're on Spotify. You can give me a answer there. On YouTube, drop a comment and just let me know what you think. This is something random, or there's something more sinister going on behind the scenes. So as we conclude this case, I just want to say thank you again. I could really use a rating if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. And if you happen to know anything about this case, you can contact Bighorn County Investigator. And in the absence of kind of a clear resolution to this case, I just hope her family can find peace. And, this is just another reminder that there's a long way to go with the kind of cultural treatment of Indigenous people in North America. I'm going to say probably Australia, New Zealand too, and a few more places. And yeah, England, you don't get off scot-free on this. Anyhow, thank you. And I hope within 2 weeks, then I'm going to have another episode out. So thanks again.